White Divine starts breaking things down, explaining that this time they've mobilized 30,000 soldiers to help collect the Soul Eaters. Furthermore, when you factor in all the professionals who were infected during this period, he estimates the final number could hit hundreds of thousands, maybe even over 1 million. Hearing that, Ju can only hope this plan succeeds, because if it fails, they're not just losing a battle. They're going down in history as absolute sinners. Meanwhile, a gentle breeze passes by as Lin returns to his small courtyard. This time, though, none of his teachers are around. He pours himself a cup of tea and sits on the stone bench, and after just one sip, his mind settles down almost instantly. Anyway, once the calm kicks in, he pulls out the brilliant intermediate skill scrolls he's been hoarding in his storage space. He notes that he's already level 60, which means it's finally time to awaken something new. He uses one scroll, golden light wrapping around his body as the scroll vanishes. But here's the weird part. He didn't actually get a new skill. That wasn't supposed to happen since these scrolls are supposed to work 100% of the time. Even stranger, there's no failure notice either. The scroll clearly activates, so Lin starts wondering if the skill is just so powerful that a single scroll isn't enough to trigger it. With that thought, he immediately uses another scroll. After several more, the golden light grows far more intense, and if you look closely, a massive skull phantom actually forms behind him. Then the system finally responds, announcing a new skill, Summon Skeleton King. The ability apparently merges skeletons from his undead legion and fuses them into a much stronger Skeleton King, with the minimum requirement being 1,000 skeletons. This instantly catches Lin off guard in the best way possible. The skill fits him perfectly, because at level 60, his summon space already holds nearly 5,000 skeletons. He doesn't even dare imagine how strong a Skeleton King would be if he merged everything. Our boy can't wait to test it out, so he activates the skill and immediately, dark clouds roll in as thousands of skeletons pour out, blotting out the sky. Thunder crashes as they begin merging, and Lin watches from the side, full of anticipation. Meanwhile, the little skellies fuse together, forming a gigantic bone throne, and from it emerges a massive skeleton wearing a bone crown, seated like a true monarch. Lin immediately checks its stats and nearly loses it. With just 1,000 skeletons, the Skeleton King already has 500,000 in all 4 attributes, plus 3 skills: God-Slaying Strike, Elemental Rampage, and Limitless Defense. His eyes go wide as he remarks that just stat-wise, the big guy is already on par with a level 80 world boss, and that's with only a fraction of what he has in stock. Naturally, that only makes him more curious. He wants to see what happens if he merges the rest of it. So he does exactly that. The Skeleton King undergoes another transformation, growing even larger in size, and a massive great sword materializes in its hand. This time, the numbers go completely insane. After fusing 4,000 skellies, all 4 attributes jump to 1 million. Only now does our guy fully examine the skills. God-Slaying Strike deals physical damage at 10 times the user's strength with a 1-minute cooldown. Elemental Rampage is an AoE skill that deals elemental damage based on spirit, also on a 1-minute cooldown. And then there's Limitless Defense, which grants 99% immunity to all damage, completely ignores all negative effects, lasts for a full minute, and only has a 10-minute cooldown. At this point, Lin finally understands one thing. This Skeleton King isn't just strong, it's straight up broken. Our guy is completely speechless. An absolutely absurd skill paired with equally absurd stats, not only reaching borderline divine level but also stacking the best skill for warrior, mage, and knight-type professions all into one package. Needless to say, it's straight up broken. Then he lets out a smile, noting that with the Skeleton King in his arsenal, he now has the confidence to solo any boss below the divine level. Furthermore, even if the Dark Sky Demon Lord were to show up again, Lin figures this time he might not even need to use the Poison God's essence blood to finish the job. Just as he's thinking that, the Skeleton King suddenly drops to one knee, driving its massive greatsword into the ground in a formal show of loyalty. Lin gives a slight nod in response and calmly sends it back into the summoning space. Moments later, the dark clouds disperse, sunlight pours back into the courtyard, and peace returns as if nothing happened. Lin looks up at the sky and decides it's finally time to challenge the next stage of the Kunlun Mountain. Anyway, before heading out, he glances around and notices that the courtyard has basically turned into a pile of ruins thanks to his skill testing. So yeah, fixing this mess comes first before his teacher sees all this. A short while later, the scene shifts to the mountainside of Kunlun. Just like at the base, the dungeon entrance here is surrounded by a camp, with plenty of professionals and full squads already stationed nearby. Without missing a beat, Lin walks straight in by himself. As expected, that instantly stuns everyone around. A few people freeze on the spot, while others quickly start putting the pieces together. Someone notes that it has to be Divine General Lin, since rumors have been flying that he's been grinding in this area recently. Another person adds that anyone crazy enough to enter this place alone could only be him anyway. Once inside the dungeon, it's the same old frozen hellscape. Not long after, Lin runs into the first wave of monsters. A level 66 Kunlun War Eagle is hovering overhead, while two more immediately rush him from the sides. Without hesitation, Lin raises a hand, summons his brand new partner, and tells the Skeleton King to wipe them out. The flames in the Skeleton King's eyes ignite, and in the very next second, it charges forward. It swings its weapon and triggers its first skill, God-slaying strike. The blade doesn't even fully connect. Just the passing arc alone turns the War Eagle into dust. Two rapid follow-up slashes later, the remaining monsters are erased just as cleanly. Lin glances at the hourglass timer above and can't help but feel surprised himself, remarking that the Skeleton King is way too strong, straight up one-shotting enemies of the same level. He continues deeper toward the core region, where a massive horde of monsters has already gathered. Honestly, this is exactly what he wanted. So once again, he orders the big skelly to deal with them. The Skeleton King opens its mouth, energy rapidly condensing into a glowing sphere. With a powerful blast forward, it unleashes its second skill, Elemental Rampage. A violent explosion shakes the entire dungeon, and Lin's system notifications start flooding in non-stop, kill messages scrolling like crazy. Watching this, Lin nods in satisfaction, commenting that the damage is pretty solid. As he approaches the massive crater left behind, a sudden violent gust slams into him. Lin immediately realizes the boss is coming. A level 75 Kunlun Lion King drops from the sky and instantly launches an attack. Sonic waves sharpen into blade-like pressure and surge toward our guy, but the Skeleton King casually blocks them all and steps right up to the boss. No matter how wildly the Lion King attacks, it can't deal any damage at all. This is the Skeleton King's third skill in action, Limitless Defense. The exchange drags on for about a minute, and just before the skill wears off, Lin decides it's time to wrap things up. With the greatsword raised high, one final strike comes down, and the boss is instantly slain. The system chimes in, awarding 78 million experience. After the boss fades away, Lin checks his personal stats. Nothing major has changed, except that most of his core skills have now reached level 60. He exits the dungeon feeling pretty satisfied, thinking this place will be a perfect grinding spot for now. Naturally, his reappearance draws plenty of attention from the surrounding professionals. But when they see him enter the dungeon again, some of them are still visibly stunned. A girl remarks that if she remembers correctly, Divine General Lin only went in a short while ago. Someone else quickly confirms it, saying it's only been half an hour. Their team leader reflects that even a full squad would need dozens of hours to clear this dungeon, yet Lin finished it in under 30 minutes. Beyond shock, what they feel most is awe. With someone this strong around, humanity's future suddenly looks a lot brighter. Anyway, the scene cuts to another part of the snowy mountains. Yan comes running over in a panic, saying something has gone wrong. White Divine and the others turn to him and ask what happened. Yan's expression turns serious as he reports that Emperor D has disappeared. That instantly stuns everyone. White Divine asks if he checked the Creator's Island, noting that the old man rarely ever leaves that place. Yan confirms he went there, but found nothing. Meng Anwen remains calm, analyzing that perhaps something completely outside their expectations must have occurred. At this point, the only thing they can do is try to contact Zhang Yi. Most importantly, he stresses that the news of the old man's disappearance must not spread under any circumstances. Looking into the distance, the group understands that if the old man really isn't around, then for the foreseeable future, they'll have to shoulder pressure from every direction on their own. Meanwhile, the scene cuts elsewhere. Two figures streak across the sky at extreme speed. Mohan asks her teacher what they're doing heading to the eternal trial grounds in the first place. The man beside her, white-haired with a cold and rigid expression, calmly answers that they're here to meet a powerful existence. And this old man is none other than the very person everyone's been talking about. What White Divine calls the old man just happens to be humanity's strongest. A short while later, the two suddenly appear before Antares. His eyes open, and an overwhelming aura surges outward, so terrifying that the space itself seems to tense up. D is the first to greet him and simultaneously shields Mohan from the pressure, though she can still feel traces of it. That alone makes her even more curious about who this being truly is. Antares lets out a faint smile, noting that this stubborn old guy is somehow still alive. He remarks that D even resisted the repulsion energy of the upper level just to come here, which makes him ask, what exactly does he want? D responds that their deal isn't finished yet, so how could he dare die so easily? Hearing that, Antares immediately guesses that D must have found the Dragon Pearl. D reaches out and hands over a small box, stating that he's found it and wants to complete their deal. Antares agrees and tells him to name his condition. D then looks toward Mohan and makes his request clear. He hopes Antares can split off a strand of his power to protect his disciple, at least until she reaches half-step Supreme Divine, ensuring her safety during that time. D explains that he understands Antares cannot interfere directly in human affairs, but he believes this kind of protection shouldn't violate his principles. Mohan is completely stunned, yet at the same time everything suddenly clicks. She finally understands why her teacher brought her here. Antares falls silent for a moment, but in the end, he doesn't refuse. He says it can be done, but he also can't help noting his curiosity. He remarks that Mohan is surprisingly similar to that kid, and they even smell alike.